Think about the smartest person you know. Not book smart, actually smart. The kind of person who reads, who thinks, who has real opinions on things. You respect how their mind works. And then one day you're in a conversation with them and they say something that stops you cold. Not because it's wrong, but because it's so blindingly obvious that they haven't questioned it. It's something they clearly just picked up from everyone around them and ran with it like it was their own idea. And the thing that gets you is that they have no clue they're doing it. They think they arrived at that opinion themselves. They'd bet money on it. And that gap, the one between how smart they are and how completely on autopilot they are in that moment, that's what this video is about. Because it's not a coincidence. There's a reason it happens. And a man figured out exactly how. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, German theologian, resistance fighter during World War II. The Nazi regime had him killed in 1945, just before the war wrapped up. But the thing that matters isn't his story. It's what he noticed. He was surrounded by some of the most educated, capable people in the country, and he watched them, one by one, start thinking in a way that wasn't really thinking at all. They were going through the motions, saying the right things, holding the right positions. But none of it was coming from their own heads. It was coming from the crowd. And Bonhoeffer spent a long time trying to understand the mechanism behind that. How does that actually happen to someone who's capable of real thought? Because that's the question. Nobody cares why an uninformed person believes something wrong. That's obvious. The question that actually matters is, how does someone who knows better end up doing the exact same thing? And the answer Bonhoeffer landed on is this. It's not that smart people suddenly lose their ability to think. It's that they start putting on a show instead. They start performing intelligence rather than actually doing it. And here's why that distinction matters so much. Because performing and doing look the same from the outside. They even feel the same from the inside. You're still talking about ideas. You're still forming opinions. You're still arguing your point. But somewhere along the way, the actual thinking part dropped out and got replaced by something else. Something that's way more about fitting in than figuring things out. You've seen it. Someone posts a take online, it's hot, it's confident, it sounds like they really dug into it. And then you realize it's the exact same take that 12 other people in their circle posted that same week. Same angle, same conclusion. They didn't think their way to it. They just grabbed it off the shelf and handed it back like it was theirs. And the wild part? They genuinely don't know they did that. So what flips the switch? What actually turns someone from a thinker into a performer? It's not a single moment, it's a pattern. And the pattern is embarrassingly simple. Every single time you say something that your group agrees with, something good happens. People respond. You feel included. You feel like you matter. And every single time you say something that goes against the grain, something you actually thought through on your own and landed somewhere different, the opposite happens. People get quiet, or they push back, not with arguments, with silence and friction. And your brain clocks that, but not consciously. You don't sit down one day and decide to stop thinking for yourself. It just starts happening. You start gravitating toward the ideas that keep the door open and away from the ones that get it shut. Over and over, without ever making a conscious choice, you've handed the wheel to the group. And now, you're just along for the ride. Bonhoeffer saw the same thing playing out in Germany, and he described it in a way that still holds up. He said that when a powerful force takes hold, whether it's political or social or cultural, it doesn't have to force people to fall in line. It just has to make falling in line feel like the only option that makes sense. And people hand it over willingly. Not because they're weak, but because the alternative feels too lonely, too risky, too costly. Now think about that in the context of how we live today. Every app on your phone is running the exact same play. They're not trying to make you think. They're trying to make you feel like you belong. And belonging has a price tag. The price tag is your independence. You pay it a little bit at a time, and you don't even notice until it's gone. And that's where it gets really hard to shake loose. Once you're locked into that loop, something happens to the way you process information. Anything that challenges what your group believes doesn't just get dismissed. It gets rejected before it even gets a fair look. Not because you evaluated it and found it wanting, but because looking at it closely would mean admitting something uncomfortable. It would mean the group might be wrong. And if the group is wrong, then everything you've been saying along with them is wrong too. And that's a price most people aren't willing to pay. So the mind just doesn't go there. it finds a reason to look the other way, every single time. You've probably seen this play out. Someone gets hit with a fact that completely undercuts their position, and instead of sitting with it, they immediately find a reason why that fact doesn't count. It's from the wrong source. It's out of context. It's not relevant. And every single one of those reasons sounds reasonable in the moment. But the real reason? They just can't afford to let it in, because letting it in would crack something open. And once something cracks, everything built on top of it starts shaking too. Bonhoeffer watched this happen over and over, and he realized something that most people still haven't caught up to. It's not really an individual problem. It's a collective one. The more connected you are to a group, the less likely you are to think outside of it. Isolation is actually protective in this context. The people who spent time alone, away from all that social pressure, held on to their independent thinking way longer than the people who were deep in the thick of it. And here's the part that should genuinely bother you. What Bonhoeffer was describing as something that just naturally happens when power rises, well, we built it on purpose. The platforms, the algorithms, the whole ecosystem. It's designed to do exactly what he warned about. Create certainty, reinforce the group, make anyone who questions it feel like the odd one out. That's not a side effect. That's the product. And it means that the exact conditions Bonhoeffer was describing in 1942 aren't just repeating. They're being manufactured, just on a scale he couldn't have imagined. So when you're sitting there, wondering why you can't get through to someone, why the facts don't land, why the conversation just goes in circles, it's not because they're stupid. It's because they're inside a system that was built to make sure the conversation never actually happens. Here's the thing though, Bonhoeffer didn't just write about everyone else. He wrote about a trap that doesn't care how smart you are. It works on smart people. It works on people who pride themselves on thinking critically. It works on anyone who needs to feel like they belong somewhere, which is all of us. Bonhoeffer himself refused to fall into it, and it cost him his life. He was arrested, he spent 2 years in a cell, and they executed him weeks before the whole thing he was fighting against finally collapsed. He never saw the end, but he left behind something that still matters. Not an answer, a question. The next time you're holding an opinion, really holding it, feeling certain about it, ready to defend it, ask yourself one thing. Did I actually arrive here? Or did I just end up here because everyone around me was already standing in this spot? And if you're not sure of the answer, that's not a sign you need to think harder. That's the sign Bonhoeffer was warning about.